Hello, everyone. This is our second segment in our leadership development interview series with Melissa Chacko. Melissa is the Deputy Chief Actuary at the New York City Office of the Actuary. My name is Michael Clark. This next segment, Melissa, I want to talk about your experience as a female in leadership positions. You're successful, you're a woman, you're a person of color, you're an actuary. A lot over the last several years has come out about dealing with unconscious bias when you're not necessarily in the majority. Given your background, how have you dealt with unconscious bias in your career?
So I'd say, like you're mentioning that it's only kind of recently come out, the topic of unconscious bias.
At least been in the forefront, right? It's always
Yeah,
been there, but
right, right.
yeah, as far as
Mhm.
being talked
Like,
about, yeah.
right, right. So earlier on in my career, I was just very unaware. I just thought, oh, that's unfair, or, I'll just do it another way. Or, I kind of just found a way to deal with the circumstances rather than being like, oh, the reason why is this. So just kind of went on my way. And sometimes I think I'm like, was I just oblivious? Or maybe that was like a survival tactic. I don't even know. So, but now that I'm much more aware of those types of biases, I'd say that honestly, is very hard. It's not easy. It's not easy being a female of color in general and in the actuarial field, especially in leadership. So, I just do the best that I can. I learn from others. I watch others. I learn from their mistakes. I try not to make the same mistakes they made, things like that. Um, and I'm just always trying to make it easier on myself. And, like I said, I could just do the best that I can. And one of the things that I've learned actually from the IABA conference, it kind of just reinforced something that I didn't realize I was already doing partly, was that, when you go into a room as a female of color, a young woman of like female of color, is that there are so many gender unconscious biases at play, automatically guaranteed, no matter what. When a woman comes into the room, that's what happens. It could be, views on their leadership, or women shouldn't be leaders. But of course, it's unconscious, right? And it could manifest as unconsciously keeping a woman out of a decision making situation, or maybe potentially just ignoring them or silencing them, or having a male talk over them. So what I've learned to do is that I need to go into a meeting prepared, always prepared. And if I want to talk about something, I need to talk about it concisely, intelligently, and just very much like confidently, because the point of this is so that the person on the receiving end focuses more on the message rather than the person that's saying the message. So if it's a very strong message and spoken clearly and directly, the person's going to hear that and respond to that versus responding to the person. So, it's a little silly that you have to do these little, jumping through hoops and stuff like that, but I guess that's where we are.
How has that benefited you? Like, do you have any specific examples that you can share with our listeners where you can point to it and say, here's a situation where I did this and here was the outcome?
Mhm. So I think it was like at the end of the year last year where, we were doing pay raises and employee assessments and things like this. And uh, I already knew about folks' point of views on like certain people and what their opinions were with regards to, what their pay levels should be and things like this. And so, I felt like there were some areas that it seemed like there was like a discrepancy. And so what I did is when I came to the table, I had straight facts of why it should be this way, like another way, not that way that's kind of set in stone, like, oh, we did it that way last year, let's just do it again. I really came in with like bullet points of why this, why that, why this. And surprisingly, like people didn't really have anything to say as like a rebuttal. So in the end, it went through and a lot of people were very satisfied with like the end result. So
It's
that's an
interesting.
example.
I think even within our profession, right, we tend to be very data driven by
Mhm.
nature, right? So that preparation, I think, is beneficial for anybody. But I can see how, coming from your perspective, that type of preparation just lends itself to the credibility when you're in the room.
Right, right,
Um,
exactly. And it's, again, it's about like how you say it. And I always have to try to have like a very kind undertone. And I think I am kind, but always respectful, always with like a bigger picture in mind, it's never about me. It's just about like what like the message, the actual thing that I'm trying to push through.
mhm.
So it's always, this is for everyone's good that this is coming up, It's kind of
Yeah.
I try to phrase it that way.
So what have you learned over your career about figuring out how to navigate these difficult circumstances that you potentially find yourself in, where this unconscious bias rears its ugly head?
So what have I learned? Well, for one, that all of these unconscious biases and difficulties will always be there. That's a given. So every day I could come into the office and not expect, I could just expect normalcy, but there's always something unexpected that happens. And I'm like, of course that happened, it's expected. So now I have kind of like an arsenal in some way where I have like a trusted friend that I can talk to. It could be a female, it could be a male, it could be, someone that I definitely trust that I can kind of bounce ideas off of. Also, I've I feel like, I've had almost 20 years of experience in this field, and I don't necessarily always need to go to a sounding board. I can always like look within for the answer if I just really take my time and think about like a strategy. Does it make sense? Like, what are the outcomes, potential outcomes? Should I be prepared for this? Should I be prepared for that? So I think, it's about taking the time either to talk to people, to figure it out on your own. Um, that's kind of what I think. When we were at the CCA on the CCA board, there were definitely, uncomfortable situations, um, situations where it was kind of surprising that someone would think so differently than you. But that was the reality, something that I really learned. And maybe it was like naivete that, I'm like, why would you think like that? Don't you know that's the wrong thing to do? Or that it shouldn't be like this. It should be like that. But like is very like a childish thinking. So I learned quickly that in order to push an agenda item forward, you again need to prepare. You need to prepare for like potential, rebuttals. Prepare for questions or things like this. So you kind of have to think 5 steps down the line, have a plan, and also, to get buy-in from others, especially if let's say there's a vote that's needed to change something, to kind of talk to people beforehand, say like, I'm kind of feeling like this, like, what are your views? Like, I really want to push this forward. And so when the topic does come up, it's like, oh yeah, we already talked about this. Here's, and everyone votes a certain way. So I think that that's one way to navigate. And, like I said before, coming in prepared, speaking confidently, and so that people are not focusing on the person speaking, but rather the message.
No, that's extremely good advice. What other advice do you have for other women actuaries or actuaries from minority backgrounds? What other advice would you give to them?
The other advice I would give, I'd say like, finding another woman to uh to bounce ideas off of or to rally with is really a positive thing, I find. I have someone here or a couple of women here that I can talk to and I really trust, and we kind of just understand it's very different being a woman compared to a man in many different ways, just how we are maybe more intuitive or a bit more compassionate, or just approach things differently. um, and another thing is, just accepting who you are and not trying to change yourself, because, well, for one thing, you can't change others, right? And you can change yourself, but not change yourself because of something that you think you should be. More of like, this is who I am and I'm going to work with what I have, and I'll make myself as strong as I can, but not somehow abandon who I am because I think I should be like something else.
No,
That's what I think.
that's awesome. That's great advice for any of us, frankly. And I think I can see how that would do a lot of good um, for people that are looking to take their career to that next step, and they're trying to figure out what it is that they need, or maybe they're feeling lost or not heard necessarily. I mean, everything you've listed, from the preparation, the buy-in, the having those sounding boards, the internal introspection, to really think through a topic. I mean, all of this has been great advice. I hope people take it to heart.
Hope so too.